No, everybody's good. Okay. Yesterday, I put together a video. On the lead script, the primary script that we use. Okay, the primary script that we use when it comes to buying leads. I put an actual video together. So not only in the video do I show you how to find the script where you can read it, print it, and use it, but I also now go through it and I even explain the psychology behind that script and why it's done the way that it is. And then towards the back end, I talk about what type of weekly activity you should have with leads if you're running a lead business. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking of people like Juan Graziani. I'm thinking of people like Lucia Maldonado. I'm thinking of people like George Caravasi. I'm thinking about people like Kelly Rende. I'm thinking about people. Jennifer Jung is actually the only person right now in my focus group that's really hitting hard on the referrals. Her scripts would be very, very different. But if Jennifer decided to buy some leads as a way to complement, I'm thinking about you as well too. That video is fire, in my opinion, right? I hate calling my own videos fire because I feel like I'm being kind of like, what's the word? Arrogant, right? But I have to say it about that one. In that particular video, I really break it down in a nice way. You know, how that script works, what's the psychology behind that script, but in the back end, what type of activity you need to have in order to really leverage a leads-based system the right way. Because if you don't have the right activity, you're not going to hit your goals. That's just the reality. You're going to get discouraged, right? Just like referrals have a different type of dialing activity, leads have a different dialing activity. Referrals have a different weekly calendar activity, leads have a different weekly calendar activity. And so I break that down there. If you go to our YouTube channel, I've created playlists. Under the playlist scripts, you'll see that last one there. I encourage you all to watch. It's like a 30-minute video. It's well worth it for you guys to watch it. So we're running a series right now on final expense, simplified issue. And the main reason is because a lot of you guys will come on board to this industry and the first thing you want to focus on is I want to master IULs, I want to master annuities, right? And I'm here to tell you from experience, guys, from experience, okay? This business is a continued education business. You're always learning something. You're always learning something. You're always learning something. I'm 18 years in. This coming August will be 18 years for me. I'm still always learning something, And so one thing I realize is that if you treat this business almost like you treat elementary, middle school, high school, college, it's a little bit easier to do, right? This business is a big old elephant. You can't eat this elephant in one sitting. You got to bite it bit by bit by bit by bit. And you first start off with the easier parts before you get to the more difficult parts, right? And so, elementary, middle school of this business is like, hey, let me learn how to sell final expense term life insurance. Let me understand how to explain the difference between simplified issued and fully underwritten. Once I mastered that, I can now go into high school classes. High school classes is, okay, let me now learn how to do GULs and IULs. Right? Let me get into that space, right? Once I've mastered that and I go into college, right? Your first 4 year, your bachelor's program. Okay, now that's more, let me figure out how to sell annuities, right? Let me understand how annuities work, index annuities, so on and so forth. And then if you decide to go post bachelor program, doctorate programs, okay, now let me figure out how to work infinite banking and premium financing. And so that's kind of how I break it down. And I'm not going to lie, that's kind of how I learned it. Honestly, I learned it. I had to build a decent foundation first on some of the basics before I could learn some of the higher level plans before you could really start doing advanced sales. So many people make a mistake. Okay. So many people make a mistake and they do it reverse. They love the jargon of infinite banking, premium financing. They love that, what do you call it? Life settlements, viatical settlements. They love that. And they want to go right to there, not realizing you still need some fundamentals first before you can jump into that, right? Like my son right now is in middle school. My son right now is his first year in middle school. And I'm excited for him. And I'm asking him, how is it? You know what he says to me? It's easy. It's easy. However, I remembered a long time ago having a conversation with him when he was in like second grade, and he was very intimidated by the concept of middle school. And the reason we got into that conversation is because his school, coincidentally, his elementary school and his middle school are attached. They're connected. They share the cafeteria. So he would always ask me, what's going on with those kids? Why are those kids there? Why are those kids so much bigger? And I would tell him, well, that's middle school classes. That's middle school classes. And him, being in second, third grade, tiny, looking at middle schoolers, huge, right? He kind of got intimidated. He says, oh man, You know, I'd be scared to go over there, right? Why? Because he wasn't ready for that leap. He can't go from second to sixth grade. He's not ready. But then he went from second to third to fourth to fifth, enters into sixth grade. How is it? Well, it's easy. It's so easy. I mean, oh my God, I love it, is what he says. Why? Because he worked his way up to it, kind of like a staircase. He worked his way up to it. He worked his way up to it, worked his way up to it. And so this business is kind of the same way. So we're in a series right now of let's get back to the basics a little bit, right? So for those of you that know how to do it, you could train this as like a train the trainers type scenario. For those of you that are new, this is back to the basics. Let's get you some fundamentals. Here's the good news. And I'm someone that I like to use analogies, right? So that really helps me in understanding. And what I've learned is that people understand it as well too. In mechanics, there's two types of mechanics. You got your basic mechanics that do oil changes, brake changes, and tire rotations. Some very basic type things that a lot of us almost know how to do at home by ourselves, right? And then you've got other mechanics that are like, nah, I know how to overhaul a motor. I know how to flip a transmission. I know how to soup up. I know how to do some nasty work to this motor, right? Two different types of mechanics. Both of them can be highly successful, very financially successful. Honestly, both of them really can. This guy that works the higher end is probably working 3 to 4 cars a month, because every car that he's working is, you know, this is a 2-week-long project. This is an overhaul. This is, I need computers plugged into the motor. I need specialists. I need certain specific equipment, right? It's not as easy as just turnkey, right? This guy here, however, is probably seeing 40 clients a month. So you got 3 to 5 clients, 40 clients a month, right? There's nothing here that's going to determine that this guy's going to be more successful than the other. So I'm going to give you some peace of mind here. You can make $250,000 to $500,000 in simplified issued final expense. You could never graduate from elementary, middle school, and you could look at high school and be like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to learn IULs. I don't want to. You could be that person and still generate $250,000 to $500,000. So don't think that just because I'm calling it elementary and middle school, that it's elementary, middle school type money. It's not. It's not. There's a lot of people in this world that all they need is an oil change. There's a lot of people in this world that all they need is a tire rotation. There's a lot of people in this world that all they need is new brakes. Their motors are fine. Their cars are running great. They don't have any interest in souping up their motors. They just need oil changes, tire rotations, and brake pads changed. And there's a lot of money in that world. There's a whole lot of money in that world. Another reason there's a lot of money in that world is if you think about this, lead generation right now, the easiest type of leads to find are final expense leads. Final expense leads. Why? 76 million baby boomers right now, guys. 76 million baby boomers are in retirement, guys. I mean, there we go. In retirement. You know what that means? You know what that means? That's 43% of the United States. That's 10,900 people on a daily basis, turning 65. That's what that means. That's what that means. 10,900 people on a daily basis turning 65, where they're saying, hey, goodbye, employer. It was nice working with you. Oh my God, I have no life insurance. I need something to protect my family. So there's such a high demand in that space. There's such a high demand in that space. That's why we're really going back to the basics with lead generation. We're going back to the basics with scripts. We're going back to that. And today we're going to talk about foresters for a moment. We're going to talk about foresters. They have a plan. Anybody know the name? All right, I'm going to give you guys a shot here. Anybody here know the name of Forrester's final expense product? Anybody know the name? Ready? It's called Plan Right. That's right. Armando just typed it over. Good job. Appreciate it, bud. Guys, I'm fired up by Armando, by the way. Armando and I, it's kind of funny. We've never known each other, but we both came from very similar paths. And he thinks a lot the way that I do. I really enjoyed my conversation with him. I expect to see him and his organization do some pretty serious, legit things. He's partnered up with another phenomenal agent, Caleb Duran, out, and I believe Armando's in California. Caleb's out in the Utah market. They're going to be doing some big things. Maria, you're out in Cali. It'd be good for you, Maria, to link up with Armando. Maybe you guys are close in Cali and such. You guys can do some work together. But anyways, yes, Forrester's final expense product is called Plan Right. Here's a tip for you. Most final expense is either approve or decline. Most final expense, you submit it. The company says either yes, approved, no decline. There's no in between. Forrester's is the only final expense, and correct me if I'm wrong. I have no problem admitting if I'm wrong, so I'm just giving you from my experiences. Forrester's is the only final expense product that actually has what's called graded insurance, which means that it's been rated. So they didn't approve it the way you applied it. They didn't decline you. They approved you somewhere in the middle. They gave you a rating. It's going to cost a little bit more money, but they're at least going to say yes instead of saying no. Forrester's is the only company that I've ever seen from a final expense platform that has that. So that's kind of good to know, to be honest with you. I think that's good to know. Second thing about final expense is this: most final expense companies, okay, Maria just said there's a couple of carriers that do that. Awesome. Maria, can you type up which other carriers do that? Because those just might not be carriers that I've used, but I'm always open and learning. If you know those carrier names that'll do rated final expense, I appreciate that. Now, most final expense companies also, I want you to understand something, because they are a simplified issued company. Simplified issue means they will not request a nurse or a doctor, I'm sorry, not a doctor. They won't request a nurse to come out to the house to draw blood and take a urine sample. That doesn't mean that they don't look at your medical records. They're going to pull your driving record. They're going to pull your prescription records. They're going to pull your MIB, your Medical Information Bureau. They're going to pull all of that stuff. What they're not going to do, they're not going to request you to have blood drawn, and very seldom do they even request attending physician statements, right? Because attending physician statements can take a long while, actually, depending on how fast the doctors, right? So it's simplified in the sense that you just submit the application. Maybe you'll have to do a phone interview, and within about a day to 5 days at worst, they'll have an answer, right? Most of it is like within 5 minutes to a day. Very seldom do they go 5. Okay, so that's a plus, right? That's a very kind of transactional sale. It's a very basic sale, right? It's also one of the reasons why final expense doesn't ever offer a huge amount of life insurance. Most final expense companies are going to be like 35, 40,000 max. They're not going to take on $100,000 risk, because the way I look at it is the underwriter's kind of looking at the application with one eye, right? They're not doing it with both eyes. They're not looking at all the detail. They're kind of looking at it from a 50-foot bird's eye view, and they're like, okay, no to this, no to this, no to this. I'm not going to even ask the doctor. I'm not even going to ask the client why they went to go see that doctor. So they're making a very basic approval based on some triggers that they're looking for. If they don't find those triggers, they're okay giving the approval. So because it's a small amount of face value, it's okay. Because the pricing for that small amount of face value is rather high. I mean, you're talking spending $50 to $150 to $110 a month for nothing more than $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 of insurance, right? I mean, let's face it. A 30-year-old that spends $100 a month will get $500,000 to $750,000 of term life insurance, right? But a 65-year-old that spends that same amount of money is only going to get $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 of coverage, right? A couple other things you want to know about final expense. Final expense, the marketing name itself, that name, it's just a marketing name. What is the policy really? You know what it really is? It's a whole life policy. It's a whole life policy. That's all it is. It's a traditional whole life policy, which means, does it build cash? Yes, it does. I don't even talk about it though. It's not even worth talking about it, to be honest. It's really not. Okay. There's a very basic way to present it, and I'll share with you how I present it. But what it really is, it's just a whole life policy. They call it final expense because it's a good marketing name, right? It's a good marketing name because that's why people at that 65 bracket typically will go looking for insurance, is to cover their final expenses, their funeral costs, their burial costs. They're not looking for $100,000 of insurance. They're looking for enough to make sure that when they pass away, they're not a burden to the spouse that gets left behind or the children that gets left behind. That's 100% their focus. Something else you need to know about the clientele that fills out leads. Most people that fill out leads in that age bracket, most of them, you have to prepare yourself for this, okay? They're all on fixed limited income, okay? Don't expect to run into a lead, right? 65, 70 years of age that lives in the Upper East Side, right? Wealth management, These people used to be CEOs of companies making $250,000 a year. I'm not going to say that you won't run into one or two. What I'm saying is typically people that grew up with money, people that grew up in that kind of net worth, when they get to that age bracket, they either have their finances already set up, they have enough assets put away to cover those funeral costs, or they have a financial advisor that they get referred to or have been working with for that type of solution. So when you're talking lead generation 65 plus, we're talking people that are literally living off of solely Social Security and maybe a small $30,000, $40,000 401k. Their budget is tight. You're going to middle American communities. You're going to blue collar houses. Okay. And so you have to understand that. And the reason you have to understand that is quite frankly, because there's a different dynamic to that person, right? There's a higher probability that person doesn't have an understanding of how finances work. And so, you know, again, you just have to know your market. You have to know your market. Okay. Being that you know they're going to be on limited income, this is probably not going to be the upsell type of a meeting. This is not the, let me see if I could find X, Y, and Z. Not to say you don't ask the questions, but you don't want to beat a dead horse is what I'm trying to get at. I do ask in every meeting, do you happen to have any, you know, money put away, IRA money, 401k money, right? Sometimes you come across some of those people that are like, oh yeah, I got, you know, 20, 30 grand, or I got money in a CD, 20, 30 grand in a CD, right? Are there solutions for that? Yes, by the way, if you come across somebody that has, you know, $20,000, $30,000 sitting in a CD and they're over 59 years of age, there's an annuity product called MIGA, which I'm not going to get into that, but it's literally the annuities competition. It's literally the CDs competition. A CD that pays 1% and a MIGA that pays 2.5%, I guarantee it's a slam dunk sale. But I'm not going to train on that today. But what I'm saying is I ask those questions, right, lightly. And if they give me a yes, great. If they give me a no, I move on. My focus is selling the final expense. It's a transactional sale. It really is. How I explain it, I'm going to explain it to you today in a way where, what did Jared just say here? Final expense is another opportunity for annuities. Yes, by asking the right question. Yeah, correct. Exactly. So I'm going to explain it to you in a way where you don't need a dry erase board. You don't even need, you know, a legal pad. The reason I'm doing it this way is because something that you're seeing a lot more agents do is telesales. Telesales is becoming something big. Now, telesales means you have to be very good at the way you describe things. You have to enunciate, right? You have to speak clearly. You probably cannot speak fast. Like in my trainings, I have a habit of speaking rather quickly. It's what gave me the idea to record it so people could go back, right? If I'm doing scripts training. But when I'm in a client's meeting, I'm not speaking this fast. I'm enunciating I'm very clear, start, stops in my words. I got to be very descriptive. So listen to how I describe final expense, because if you learn to do it this way, you could present final expense to someone who's blind, because all they're doing is listening to you, which means what? You should be able to gear yourself up to be able to do final expense sales over the phone. Over the phone. That would be phenomenal. You know how powerful it is to be able to do final expense sales over the phone? You've just expanded your territory from your local neighborhood to your state. And if you're willing to get non-resident licenses, you've expanded it to all 50 states, because you're now over the phone. You're able to go back to back on meetings now as well too. Here's how I typically do it over the phone. Mr. Client, the most important thing here is making sure that we can stay within your budget. You're looking for insurance to cover your final costs, and more than likely this will be the last insurance policy that you purchase, because here's the reality. The older you are, the more expensive it's going to become. So let me explain to you how final expense works. Look what I just did there. I slowed myself down, right? Let me explain to you how final expense works. Okay. Final expense insurance is going to be anywhere from $2,000 of life insurance to about $40,000 of life insurance. And that insurance will be there until the very last day that you're here. Audio and video is choppy for me. Hang on one second. Guys, is my audio and video choppy, or is that just Tanisha?
No, you sound good. You
guys are good? Okay. All right. Yeah, because I got some really good internet. So it shouldn't be choppy. I would take a look at your internet, guys. Okay. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to repeat it again. Let me talk to you about final expense insurance. Okay. The most important thing that we first need to figure out is, what is your budget? Because the reality is, this is more than likely going to be your last insurance that you purchase, because the older you become, the more costly that they become. So I want to make sure we get you something that fits within your budget. Okay. How final expense works is very simple. we're going to get you anywhere from $2,000 to $40,000 worth of insurance. It'll be there until the very last day that you're here on earth, as long as you make your monthly payments. Those monthly payments come out automatically every single month out of your bank account. Okay. We can have statements mailed to you and maybe a secondary person, like a child, if you wish, so that they can always make sure that your payments are being made on time. But that's pretty much the gist of how these plans work. Now, there is a 2-year period, first 2 years, where you have to outlive that first 2 years in order for them to guarantee they'll pay the entire amount of insurance. Because if something happens to you within the first 2 years, they do have the right to review the application and see if there was anything that was incorrectly stated in the application. And if by chance they find that, they could only give you back the monthly amount of money that you have paid into the policy. So it's very important that when we take this application, that we're very upfront and honest about any and all medical conditions, any and all medication. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Okay, perfect. Mr. Client, let me ask you a question. The most important question here. What is your budget that you want to make sure you don't go over? What's that monthly dollar amount? Right? You saw that description? It's very simple. It's very, kind of plain vanilla. You get anywhere from $2,000 to $40,000 of insurance. It'll be there for the rest of your life. And Mr. Client, as long as you make your monthly payment, you're fine. The payment does have to come out monthly, automatic out of your bank account. Right? Now, let me get technical now with you guys. Are there other ways to tap into that money? Yes. Yes, there are accelerated benefits. Do I talk about it? Not really. I'll tell you why. Sometimes it confuses the client. But here's the other reality. It's such a small amount of insurance that it doesn't make a huge impact. The accelerated benefits we're talking about is chronic illness, right? You can tap into the money if you have a need for a nurse. There's also terminal illness, right? If the doctor declares that you have less than 12 months left to live, you can tap into that money. But because it's such a small amount, 2 to 40,000, most people are going to get 5, 10, 15,000 at best. That's what you're going to find most of your sales are going to be. It almost just doesn't even make sense to bring it up. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is the simpler you keep it, the easier it is for them to apply. The more complex you keep it, the harder it is for them to make a decision. And if you work in lead gen, I want you to understand something. Whether you're doing it in now or you're doing it later, you're going to be competing against other agents that are going to be presenting final expense products. And if they're already talking to a couple other people, I promise you, they're going to do business with the one that makes it seem the easiest. People have a natural tendency to take the path of least resistance. And whichever one sounds easier is the path they're going to go. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't be that technical person that's like, well, you can get it if you have a need for a nurse. You can get it if you're going to overcomplicate it. Just keep it simple. You can get anywhere from $2,000 to $40,000 of coverage based on your budget. As long as you make your monthly payment, the insurance is there. The day that you pass away, your family receives that money, right? Is it until the last day? Because, my family lives long. As long as you don't live past 120 years of age, you're fine. Simple as that. Simple as that. Okay. Don't sell it there. Exactly. I don't talk about the accelerated benefits. I also don't even talk about the cash value. Remember, it's whole life. So it does build cash value. I don't even talk about that. Because if you start talking about that, you might get a technical guy that's like, well, wait a minute, at what interest? And are there other policies that pay me at higher interest? Guys, these policies are so small that none of that matters. It's pennies. Pennies are the difference. Pennies are the difference. Does that make sense? Everybody's good? Okay, perfect. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share screen here, and I'm going to show you how on our own very website, even without a writing number, you have the ability to run these quotes. Okay, we're going to talk about foresters for a bit. I talked about a couple things with foresters. Remember, foresters allows you to have a graded policy, which means, you have a chance of getting it approved, maybe not as you applied it, but a little bit more money, which is good. They give you that flexibility. Foresters is also a fraternal company, which means every single member that purchases a policy, doesn't matter what type of policy they get with foresters, they automatically can get these member benefits. These member benefits sometimes help you solidify the sale if you are in competition with somebody else trying to sell another final expense policy. In order for foresters to be classified as a fraternity company, which gives them some tax benefits, they have to offer their members benefits. They have to offer certain perks. Okay. Some of those perks, and I don't know, maybe I'll have time, we'll go over all of them, but some of those perks, I'll tell you, are pretty good ones. Here's what some of them are, just so you know. They have a natural disaster benefit. If they happen to live in an area where there's a high probability of natural disaster, I would definitely talk about it. Like, for example, South Florida. What is there a probability of in South Florida every summer? Hurricane. I see Jay. I could read Jay's lips. She's like, hurricane, right? What's there a higher probability of in California? Earthquakes, right? Midwest, tornadoes, right? And so Foresters has this benefit where if you go through a natural disaster, they're going to give you cash to help offset some of the costs. It's not a lot of cash. It's like $300-400. But sometimes that little extra perk is what helps you solidify the sale when the person that your competition is presenting a final expense product from a company that doesn't even offer that at all. This perk is automatically there. Not bad. That's one benefit. Second benefit is this thing called legal links. They have a legal department that they can contact for legal advice, help on a will, help on, certain specific topics, but they have that department that they can contact. That's a nice perk to have. That's a decent perk to have, right? Third benefits that they have scholarship programs for qualified members that possibly their grandkids could apply for, just because there's someone in the family that's a member, right? Pretty good. Another perk that they offer is they offer event tickets, right? They offer it's by no reason but they will offer you free tickets to maybe like a Barnum and Bailey's circus or a hockey game or something in your area. You literally just call Foresters and say, hey, you know what events are going on and what tickets do I qualify for? Think about, the 65-plus-year-old person that's on limited income, right? They have 7 days off a week now. They want to try to retire, but unfortunately, they can't retire the way that they wanted to retire. They're on a limited income. Social Security happens to be such a big part of their living that anything free is big to them. So when they can get those free tickets to go to the different events, it's beneficial, right? Trust me, these little itty bitty perks will help you solidify the deal, especially if you're in competition, because the price of a Forester's final expense is very, very competitive to the price of many other final expense companies. I mean, they'll look at it and they'll be like, wait, for the same amount of money with you guys versus the same amount of money over there, I can get this final expense insurance and all of these perks. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Anybody have any other questions? No. Okay. I'm gonna sidebar for 2 minutes here on another benefit I would encourage everybody here who has children to have. One of the other member benefits that they offer is called an orphan benefit. An orphan benefit says if the parent has an insurance policy on them and the children become orphans, meaning mom and dad both pass away, but at least one of them had a Forester's policy, doesn't matter how big or how small, there's an orphan benefit where that child will get $900 per month until they turn 18, on top of the insurance that policy, the insurance death benefit that policy offered. So if you had a $250,000 term policy and, husband, wife, 3 kids, and mom and dad both pass away, and at least one of them had a policy with Foresters, the member benefits say all 3 kids are going to each get $900 a month, which is $2,700 until they turn 18, on top of the $250,000, whoever, is going to be given to whoever the parents assigned as the beneficiary. My opinion is this: if you're a parent and you have life insurance in other places, I have Mutual of Omaha, I have American National, I have NLG, I have Allianz. These are the policies I have, right? Like I'm more than well insured. You just got to get a small little policy. I'm talking about a little $100,000, $10 a month term policy, and you automatically get that extra benefit. I don't think there should be a parent on the plan that doesn't have it. Just as a sidebar, that benefit, that orphan benefit, isn't that attractive on a final expense because, let's face it, their children are already adults. Their children are already in their 30s and 40s, but it's just a good benefit to know that exists. When I close the sale on a final expense, I talk about that benefit. Anybody know why I talk about the benefit after I closed on the sale? Anybody know why?
So they can refer their children to you, and you can write their children who have children, their grandchildren be covered. Amen.
There it is. It's a great referral benefit. Mr. Klein, I just want you to know this company you just did business with has one more benefit that I didn't talk about, but I want you to know there might be family members of yours that would be interested in this. And I explained the orphan benefit. Mr. Klein, you have your daughter, you have your son. I would have already done that fact finding, by the way, while I was taking the application. I want to know who those are. Do they have kids? They do. Those are your grandbabies, aren't they? Yes, they are. Listen, a grandparent looks, they light up a little bit differently when it comes to their grandkids and their own kids. It is. I think I know why. You know, they're like, oh, you can come, you know, how I'm gonna hug, you can eat all the candy you want. You can get all jacked up on sugar. You can misbehave because you know what? At the end of the day, you go back to your parents and you don't stay here. So grandparents love their grandkids a hell of a lot more than they love their own kids. So when they know that there's that benefit that their grandkids could have, oof, fire. You know what some of them might even say? Can I buy it for them? Yes, you can. You can buy it for them, no problem. But I need to first speak to your children because I need to get their permission because this insurance would ultimately be on them. Right? Do you mind if I give them a call? Of course, no problem. Right? Just little extra. And by the way, when I take an application, a life insurance application, regardless of what type of, I get beneficiary information and contingent, names and phone numbers. And I want to know what territory they're in. You know why? Because at some point or another, I'm going to ask them for permission to get referred to them. And if I have their name and number already, I don't have to ask for it anymore. I already got it. Number one. Number two, sometimes I'll do what's called a fiduciary meeting with a contingent beneficiary. A fiduciary meeting, so you know, is me saying, hey, I would love the opportunity to sit down with your beneficiaries and explain to them what these insurance policies that you're purchasing today do so that they know what the protocol is in the event something happens. They know what number to call. They know that I'm your agent. They know what insurance companies with. They know the policy number. They know what it does. They know the accelerated benefits that are accessible to you. And that way your beneficiaries have a better understanding of the plans that you put in place, because you'd be amazed how many people get life insurance. Beneficiaries know nothing of it. They pass away, years go by before they realize that there was insurance in place to help some of those financial heartaches that come immediately after the death of someone. And that's a great end to another meeting, another referral, another cross sale. Just so you know, if you're not doing contingent beneficiaries on all sales, life, IUL, term, whatever, not just final expense, if you're not doing fiduciary meetings with your contingent beneficiaries, you're missing out on several meetings. Several. I get contingent beneficiaries, at least two. And I ask, do I have your permission to contact these individuals and let them know exactly what these policies do in the event something happens? Because the last thing you want is for the very people you love not to know that these things exist, and then these things die in vain. You'd want them to know. You'd want them to know if you're in the hospital, if there's accelerated benefits that they can tap into and not just death benefits, right? Yes. Would you be okay if I had that conversation with them? Sure. It gives me a chance to present the product, build a relationship, and hopefully, cross my fingers, what? Cross-sell. Begin the process of nesting inside that family tree. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, good. All right, I'm gonna go for about another probably 15, 20 minutes. And for those of you that are just hopping on, like, you know, this is your first couple of meetings, I do state on the back office website that it's only an hour-long meeting, but I'm not gonna lie, seldom do I keep to that. I think I'm gonna change it to an hour and 20, just so everybody kind of knows. But if you do have to hop off, I do understand. I am respectful of that. This is being recorded. But let me show you how to run the quotes using our back office here real quick. Here's the cool part about Forrester's software. They probably have the best software for running quotes for people who don't even have a writing number. Most carriers, you need a writing number. You got to log in. You got to put your writing number in to be able to, you know, see the quotes. Can you guys see my screen here? You see the TKL website? Yep. Okay, good. So when you're logged in, right, you know you're logged in because there's your username, right? It's one of the things that you did when you did contracting. So for those of you that maybe haven't done contracting yet, that's why you haven't been able to log in. Once you do, I promise you my licensing team will approve you in. You go right here, you scroll all the way down to mobile quick quotes. In mobile quick quotes, what you'll see is that we've put together every company that we know offers a website that you can run quotes on without having a contract number. I call them mobile quick quotes because here's the other reality. I encourage every one of you to log into the TKO website on your mobile device, scroll down to mobile quick quotes, open up every one of these links, and then save the links on your phone. Save it on your home screen as like a little app. That way you could just click it and right from your phone, you could do the quotes. Just word of advice. Okay. Another tip for you, since we're talking about mobile device, if you can invest and get yourself a little mobile hotspot, it costs like an extra 20 bucks. I would encourage you to do that because a lot of final expense sales, you're going to realize that older generation might not have Wi-Fi. They at times don't have Wi-Fi. And if you're in an area, like for example, in Naples, when you go to what's called the estates, signal's rough there. So the hotspot on my phone isn't as good, but the hotspot on my hotspot, like my actual little hotspot device that I bought, is a lot better. And that generation of people in their 70s, they don't have internet. A lot of them don't. And so you need that in order to take an electronic application. That's kind of, a little tip for you guys. But look, you go right here to Foresters. There it is. Look how cool it is, right? You go right here to Plan Right. And you run a quote. Mr. Client, how old are you? Oh, I'm 65. Right? Male, non-tobacco user. Okay. What's your budget? Right? Look, it gives you the option to quote it based on face amount or premium amount. I typically will go by premium amount because that's one of the questions I ask. What's your budget? Oh, I don't want to go over 75 bucks. Okay, got you. Premium, 75 bucks. Get quote. Mr. Client, for 75 bucks a month, I can get you anywhere from, look at the numbers, from $7,800 to $13,000 of coverage. You see how there's different ratings? So if they get approved preferred, it'll be 13,000. If they get approved standard, it's 8,000. If they get approved basic, it's $7,800. So that's what I tell them. It's going to be anywhere from $7,800 to about $13,000 of coverage. Well, that's not that bad. They might say, how much is 100 bucks? That tends to happen a lot, right? How much is 100 bucks? Right? So we hit return. 65-year-old male, blah, 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 blah. Let's change this to 100 bucks. 100 bucks. Boom. Get quote. Well, for 100 bucks, I can increase you from 13,000 to 17,750 bucks per month. Guys, I promise you, and I challenge you to do this. Go run some final expense quotes with other companies using the same parameters. And you'll see that the pricing is pretty competitive on Forester's end. Now, remember, the added member benefits that Forester's brings can help you if you're dealing in a competitive situation. 100% hands down. 100% hands down. But here's the other reason why I like the mobile quoting system that Forester's have. Notice I'm not logged into Forester. So I'm doing this training today, talking to everybody here. As long as you've done your contracting paperwork for Forester's, even if you don't have a writing number, you have access to this. You can run your quotes, right? Now watch this. This is one thing I like that no other mobile quoting software has that I've seen. Right here, you check this. Would the owner like to get a copy of the quote emailed to them? Oh, that's fire. You know what I do? Email it to myself. Email the quote. What just got emailed to me is this right here. You see this presentation right here? This just got emailed to me in a nice little PDF. A nice little PDF right there just got emailed. Right? So sometimes there's clients, especially old school clients, right? They kind of want something. They want to feel like they left with something when they applied. Remember, they're applying with you right then and there electronically, and then you're leaving. You got to prove, but there's nothing in their hand. You could email this to them. Here it is, Mr. Client. There's your illustration. All right? Any questions? Everybody's good? Everybody's good?
Hey, Tony, quick question.
Yes.
So how do you sell? I know I'm a little silent guy on here, but so there, if you do the numbers right, this is probably just me thinking and maybe just overthinking my numbers. At 10 years, pretty much you paid for it, right? And they'll be 75. How do you sell that, right? Because obviously, hopefully they live till 20 more years after that. Then they'll be pretty much kind of paying for something that they already paid for anyways,
Yeah, so remember, because this is whole life, that's a good question, by the way, because this is a whole life policy, okay, you can do what's called paid up. Once you've paid into the policy, right, the dollar amount of the face value that you originally signed up for, you could take the policy paid up, which means the policy is now owned, it's yours. You don't have to continue to make any more payments. If you continue to make more payments, you can, and all that's going to do is going to increase your death benefit simply because it's increasing your cash value. And it'll do it dollar for dollar by what you're putting in plus a little bit of interest. So the client doesn't ever have to feel like, oh man, I'm going to end up paying more money than what I'm going to get out. They can, once they've paid into any, and this is how all whole life works, guys. Once they've paid into it, what the dollar amount that there is in death benefit, you can call the insurance company up and say, hey, take this policy and pay it up. No more monthly premiums. The policy is now paid. It's owned. It's there, guaranteed until 120 years of age. Does that answer your question, Frank?
1,000%. 1,000%. I just didn't know what that this final expense thing is new.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Now, notice something. I didn't give that information until it was asked. There is such a thing called analysis by paralysis. If you sit in a final expense meeting and you go over accelerated benefits, cash value, and that question right there, I promise you, a lot of the time, it's like too much info. And your competitors are not doing that. Your competitors are being very monthly death benefit. It lasts until the last day you're here, right? So I give it if it's asked. I'm giving it to you guys because my job is to educate you and arm you with as much knowledge as you possibly can, but just don't feel like the kind of training I'm giving you is exactly what you need to do over there. Okay, present the way that I presented it, knowing that you have answers to other questions if the people ask the questions. If they don't ask it, don't give it. The last thing you want to do is confuse them. No one's going to take action on something that's confusing. Hey, because here's another thing. Here's another thing I want you to understand. They're looking at you also, and they're saying, when I'm not here, you represent me. When I'm not here, you got to talk to my family. If you're confusing me, you're going to confuse the hell out of my family. They're looking at you, which means when you go to the meeting, be presentable, business casual at least. It's an old school generation. Baby boomers are still very much like, if you're not doing telesales, they're still very much like, see, look at me face to face, belly to belly, shake my hand, look at me in the eyes. If they offer you something to drink, accept it, please. Accept it. I don't care. Oh no, but I'm on specific diets. Listen, nobody here is on an anti-water diet. Okay. Ask for water. It's okay. Sit in the kitchen table. Even if their home is a little bit basic, like guys, I'm not going to lie. You're going to run into some meetings, some final expense meetings where it's like, they got 4 different color furnitures. That's how the old school generation acts, right? Compliment their place. You're going to run into places where, it's not as clean as probably you would want it to be because they're elderly and maybe, they struggle a little bit with back problems or sweeping and this and that. You got to be flexible with that stuff. Okay. Don't go in there and show how you feel with your face. You know what I'm talking about, right? When you walk in, you're like, no, no, boo-boo. No, you don't do that. You go in there. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Right? Like you're going to go in there. I run into some meetings, some final expense meetings where these are elderly people. And unfortunately, we live in a world today where elderly people aren't taken care of as much as they were back in the day. I hate saying that, but it's the truth. And so they get lonely. You know what they do sometimes? They'll buy some dogs, not 1, not 2. Sometimes it's like 3 dogs. And then you go into their house and it smells like dog. It smells like a dog because the dogs are there all the time. You got to be expecting it and you got to be ready for it. It's okay. You're only going to be in that meeting for 45 minutes to an hour and a half if they want to talk to you about their grandkids. And let me tell you something. If they want to talk to you about their grandkids or their life story, buckle up and listen to these stories. You don't know if maybe it was 3 months ago that their own family members walked through their door to talk to them. They're lonely. They sometimes will want to take up your time and just spark conversation with you. Buckle up and listen, deal with it because you're building that relationship. You're building that rapport. If you try to cut to the chase, you might turn them off and they might just be like, no, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Right. They don't want to feel like there's a dollar sign over their head. So yes, that generation is very much relationship building. I'm here for you. I care about you. What can I do for you? Let me explain how this works. Oh, tell me about your grandkids. You want to show me pictures? Beautiful. Show me pictures. Let me show you my kids. Buckle up. Get ready for an hour and a half. But you know what's crazy? You get the policy approved in 5 minutes. You get paid within the next day to the following day, right? at one of the product lines that has one of the highest comps. I mean, a field manager, for example, gets paid 110% contract on some of these companies. So you get $100 a month contribution from a client, right? $100 a month. That's $1,200 for the year at 110% contract. You know, you just made $1,320. Did I do that right? 100 times 12 times 1.10. Yeah, you just made $1,300 for sitting there for an hour and a half. You really gonna be mad? You spent probably what? You spent maybe, you know, 3 hours, 4 hours on a phone zone the week prior. If you're using an auto dialer, which everybody here should be using some type of auto dialer, I recommend using Jarvis's CRM. It's the most cost effective and one of the best. Okay, you can knock out 100 dials in an hour and a half. Okay, it's super easy. So you spent, you know, let's say you spent 3 hours the week prior dialing, scheduling meetings, and that was one of those meetings. You spent an hour and a half in the actual meeting. You spent 5 hours, 1.5 with the client, 3 hours dialing. You walked away with $1,320 like this. And you're spending 0 hours underwriting, 0 hours delivering policies. Which, don't get me wrong, delivering policies is a great opportunity to get referrals, by the way. I like to come back to the client and present to them their policy. Here's your policy. Here's your policy number. Let me show you the pages. Here's where the beneficiary is. Here's your contact info. Boom, 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 boom. By the way, let me ask you a question. This is my referral language now, by the way, just so you guys know, this is my referral language. By the way, Mr. Client, let me ask you a question. When you had first called me, when I had first called you, what did you think? I'm just curious. What did you think when I first called you? You know what they're going to say? You know, it's kind of sketchy. Didn't really know who you were, right? That's what they're going to say. I can understand that. Mr. Client, now that you've kind of seen the value and the services that we bring to the table, now that you've experienced what it is to be one of my clients, what are your thoughts of us now? Oh, I love you guys now. I think you're amazing. I think you're great. I really enjoyed it. You made it so welcoming. You made it so easy. You made it so right? That's how it is. Mr. Client, I want you to understand something. The way that I treat all my clients is the same way you and I had a conversation with. And believe it or not, a lot of people nowadays don't announce that they're looking for these services out of fear that they're not going to be treated with respect. If you don't mind, I'd like to take the next 5 to 10 minutes with you to talk about some of the people that you know that could benefit from some of these services. They don't have to be in your age bracket because we have many other solutions for people in their 30s and 40s. We have many solutions for grandkids, savings plans, college plans. We have many solutions. But if you happen to have people that maybe you are in your age bracket that could benefit from this product, I would love an introduction to them. If you have people in your family that you would want to make sure that for the same amount of money you just spent, they can get 3 times the amount of insurance because they took it at an early age, I would love an introduction. Mr. Client, who do you know that could benefit from a conversation like this? You put your head down, put your pen to the paper, and you wait. And you wait, and you wait. They're going to give you names. Only get the names in the beginning. Don't try to qualify every referral. Get the names first. This person, and then this person, and then this person. And when they tell you, I don't have anybody else, this is all of them, then you go back and you qualify each one of them. Also, you gave me John's name. What does John do for a living? John does this. Okay. And what's John's phone number? Blah, 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 blah. And does John live here or does John live somewhere else? And you qualify each person. Qualify each person. I want to know what they do for a living. Why? Because what they do for a living a lot of times will give me a good perspective as to how much money they make. I'm going to introduce you to my kids, right? One of them is a mechanic. Another one's a doctor, right? Hey, wait a minute. Who do I want to call first? I probably want to call a doctor first. There's a higher probability there's some paper in that household. Not to say mechanics don't make money, because like look at the example I used earlier today. I know business owners that run body shops. I mean, they're making $500,000, $750,000, but I have to be real that the title sometimes does dictate their income, right? What does this one do? This one's a public school teacher. What does this one do? This one runs his own manufacturing company. Oh, okay. I know which one I want to call first. And that's how I get referred into other families. That's how I begin the process of nesting. When you get into referrals, it's a game over. Because you know what you don't have to deal with referrals? Other agents competing for that business. There's not going to be another agent that acquired that lead that's going to call that person behind you. And you get a warm introduction. So now when you call that lead, let's say the client you made, his name is John. Now when you call that lead, right? It's, hey, Stephanie, how are you? Nice to meet you. My name is Tony Martinez. I'm calling in reference to John. Did John tell you I was going to give you a call, or is this completely and utterly out of the blue? You know what she's going to go say? Wait, John who? John, your grandfather. Oh, no, he didn't tell me anything about it. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, let me take a step back. Let me share with you why I'm calling. That way you're not trying to figure out who the heck this crazy guy is on the other line. She's going to chuckle. Oh, look, last week I was having a business conversation with John. And through the conversation, your name had come up, and he really thought it'd be valuable if you and I had a chance to chat, and I had a chance to share with you some of the work that I do. Well, what do you do, Tony? I'm glad you asked. Well, I work in the area of insurance and investments. I specialize in income tax reduction strategies, business planning, and insurance management. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, John is under no assumption whatsoever that you're in the market for my services. He just knows the caliber of people that I like to work with and thought that that we would find some value in having a conversation together. He tells me you're in Naples, Florida. Is that correct? Yes, I am. You know, coincidentally enough, I'm going to be in Naples tomorrow and then again on Thursday. And I was hoping I could stop by for 20, 30 minutes, shake your hand, put a face to the name, and share with you a little bit more about what I do. What's a good time? What would be a better day, Tuesday or Thursday? Well, Thursday works. Okay. Mornings or afternoon? Afternoons. Well, I have 5 o'clock available and 7 o'clock available. What works best for you? Can we do 7? Okay, perfect. 7 o'clock works. What's the address where we're going to be meeting at? Okay, perfect. Listen, Stephanie, if I don't hear from you, you have my number, right? Do you have my phone number on the caller ID? Good. That's my direct number. Is the number I'm calling you your direct number? Yes, it is. Stephanie, if I don't hear from you, can I just assume that we're good to go? Right? Oh, can you call me to confirm? Stephanie, I would love to do that, and I will do my very best to do it, but I'm not going to lie. I am back to back on meetings all day long. So there's a high probability I might forget. If you'll do me a favor and put this on your calendar, I'm going to put this on my calendar. If you don't hear from me, I'm going to respect your time, and I guarantee I'll be knocking on your door at that time. But if I don't hear from you, can I expect the same? Yes, perfect. I look forward to meeting you. If you do need to reschedule, I need at least 24 hours notice. That way I can reposition my calendar. Is that okay with you? Yes? Awesome. I look forward to meeting you on Thursday at 7 o'clock at this particular address. Have a great day. Click. Jennifer Jung, that's my referral. That's my phoning language when I'm calling referrals, by the way. And I'm so glad that I recorded this training because you guys can now go back to it. But remember, Jennifer, you told me you got 20 referrals. And I was like, let me get on the phone with you because the script to that call is very different than a script to a lead. That's my script. That's literally my script. I'm calling in reference to John. Did he tell you I was going to call you? No, he didn't. Let me take a step back and share with you why I'm calling. Last week I met with him. He told me a great view and I had a conversation, share with you some of the work I do, right? Oh yeah, what is it that you do? I specialize in 2 areas, insurance and investments. I specialize in income tax reduction strategies, business planning, and insurance management. Look at that intro. I specialize in income tax reduction strategies. Who's not interested in that? Business planning and insurance management. Now look, you gotta get the nominator off the hook. John's under no assumption you're in the market for my services. He knows the caliber of people I like to work with, so indirectly I'm complimenting her, and thought it'd be beneficial if you and I had a chance to have a conversation. You're in Naples, right? I always do that. I want to know where they're located because I'm gonna go with that. I don't want to give them a window to say I'm not interested. You're in Naples, right? Yes. Coincidentally, I'm gonna be there next Tuesday and Thursday, even though I'm probably not, but I'm gonna say that. Right? I'm gonna be there next Tuesday and Thursday. And I just want to know which of those 2 days would be a good day for me to stop by and chat with you for 20, 30 minutes, share with you a little bit more specifically about the work I do. Right? So I'm giving them questions and I'm giving them choices, but the choices are not, no, I'm not interested. The choice is meet me on this day or this day, this time or that time. Does that make sense? It's an assumptive close. It's an assumptive close. So does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Here's what I will tell you. And this is the unfortunate downside if you don't have the writing number right away. I just remembered this. Forrester's doesn't use, let me share with you what it is I'm talking about actually, so it makes sense. I'm going to share the screen here. Where am I still sharing the screen? I am. Wow. Okay. Good. I didn't realize that. Sorry. All right. So if you go here to our IMO, and you click our IMO, it's going to redirect you to callums.com. That's our IMO. This is the most blessed, this is the company that blessed us with an opportunity to become an FMO. Okay. You go right here to Appt services. See, here's Appt, right? What it is, it's IGO. Here's a list of all the companies you could submit applications through iGo. And guess what? You don't need a writing number to submit the application if you go through here, right? Because most of these companies have their own website and you got to log into their website to get into iPipeline. Well, we already have iPipeline accessible outside of their websites. So there's Forrester's, right? There's North American. There's National Life Group. There's Mutual of Omaha, right? I'm just kind of listing off some of the more commonly used companies that we have, right? But you go right here to try it now. If you haven't created an account, you have to create an account right here, verify yourself. It takes like 30 seconds to do. I already have my credentials there. You log in. Start a new case, right? That page looks familiar, right? That's the iPipeline page, right? Start a new case, client's name, right? John Smith. His date of birth is, I don't know, we'll make it up. 5/15/1945. This guy's 76, that's fine, whatever. Male, title it, Smith, John. This is a, starting to build in Georgia. Let's use Georgia. Georgia, right? And let me see here. Final expense. See that? Select available products. What it does, it'll show you which companies have a final expense application that you could submit electronically right away. If you notice, Forrester's is not there. This is something that I just remembered, so I apologize for that. You can run quotes using the mobile app services if you don't have a writing number, but you want to bring with you a paper application for your first application with Forrester's if you don't have a writing number, because they actually don't have iPipeline accessibility for their final expense platform. Now, if it wasn't final expense and it was just a term life product, as an example, you can click find available products again, and look what pops up. There's Forrester's. There's Forrester's Your Term. There's Forrester's Strong Foundation Non-Medical. Right? So the Your Term is a fully underwritten. This is the Express. Or you can go to National Life Group and there's their 20-year guaranteed term, 30-year term, right? By the way, if you're doing NLG, it's the LSW platform, not the NL platform. Okay. You can go to North American. There's the term, right? So the iPipeline inside of our IMO's back office will show you every company we can sell. And if there's an e-app for it, you can do the e-app through here without even having a writing number. And then what you're going to do afterwards, when you submit the application and it's asking for the writing number, you're either going to type in the word pending or you're going to put straight zeros across the board, right? Some companies accept the word pending, some companies are straight zeros. Once you've done that, you've got to let my licensing team know that you submitted an application that you don't have a writing number for. Because what my licensing team will do is then they'll take your contracting paperwork that's sitting in their desk and they'll submit it to the company and they'll put it ahead of the list and they'll tell the company, hey, I need you to process this because there's an application sitting in underwriting that needs a writing number and needs an agent with a writing number. And what happens is underwriting for that product will begin at the same time as contracting begins for you. You know why that's beneficial? Some IMOs and some FMOs require you to have a writing number first before you can go out and write business. So if you are sitting on some potential business in your hand, get ready because you could turn it in. The most flexible company that lets you do illustrations and applications for both for term insurance, for GULs, for IULs, for whole life is North American. North America by far is the best. For anybody that's like, man, I need to write business, I need a writing, it's North American. The only state you cannot turn business in without a writing number is Pennsylvania. So if you're building in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania does not allow you, the state of Pennsylvania does not allow you to turn in business without a writing number. You need a writing number first, period. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. That's a state law. All the other states, clutch, go for it. So to finalize my training here, specifically for Forrester's, Forrester's has eApp for all their applications except their final expense. They do have an electronic system to submit the app, but you need to be logged into Forrester's website. And unfortunately, to be logged into Forrester's website, you need the Forrester's writing number. And so if you don't have a writing number, you're going to run your quote, right? The way I showed you, but you should take with you a paper application. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, where do I get these paper applications? You ready? Here's what you do. You contact John Countryman at our back office. You contact John Countryman. He's the illustrations design expert. And you let him know, hey, John, can you email me a final expense for foresters for the state of Georgia, the state of Florida, wherever you are? Can you email me that application, please? He'll email you a PDF of that paper application so you have it there ready to go. Ready to go, right? Now, some of you might be asking, well, how come we don't just get writing numbers right away first? Let me explain that to you, okay? Every time we submit a writing number, it costs us anywhere from $75 to $100 to process that paperwork. And here's the downside. In the independent world, if you don't use that writing number, some companies are 30 days, some companies are 90 days, some companies are 6 months. If you don't use that writing number within that time period, they terminate your contract and you got to start the heck all over again. And when you start all over again, sometimes they get a little bit pickier and they're like, why didn't you write business the first time? What changed? Like, why do you want us now? You know, they kind of side eye you. So as a rule of thumb, my licensing team and I agreed that we don't want to turn in your contracts until we know you either have business that you're about to turn in. We'll start it ahead of time. If you know you have business you're about to turn in, we'll start it ahead of time, or until you physically turn in that first piece of business. That way, it's cost effective on the FMO, which allows us to run a completely free operation the way we operate it now, number one. But number two, it prevents you from having writing numbers and then losing them. Does that make sense? So I wanted to give you the why behind all of that, because some of you might have already had that question in your head. Why don't we just get the writing numbers first? That's why. Now, if you know that you're about to write business, you're like, Tony, I know I'm about to write business. I haven't met with her yet, but I'm about to. Let my licensing team know. We'll gladly start contracting for you. I just want to prevent you from getting a number and then losing the number. You know what I mean? Like, that's the biggest piece. The money is the least of the issue. It's more about, you know, keeping, yes, money is important because I got to keep the cost down, right? If every agent gets 5 writing numbers, you know what I mean? And we're recruiting 100 a month, that's a pretty big bill. So I would rather keep that cost down to keep it free for everybody. But more importantly, I want to make sure that you don't lose your writing numbers and then have to go through tougher underwriting when you try to recontract over again. So if there's no further questions, I'm going to let you guys go, let you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, let your business plan and double down. You got second half of January in play. Let's get this going. If you're in the business of buying leads, go get you some leads. Okay. We've got, I just uploaded to our website under the tabs lead. I just uploaded the aged leads store. You could buy $1.50 aged leads in that website, minimum of $100. It's pretty cool the way it works. It's user friendly, so I'm sure you can figure it out. But you could pick the county, you could pick the zip code, you could pick the type of lead you want, you could pick how old you want the lead to be, and boom, 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 boom. They'll sell you up to 20-cent leads. I don't recommend you get those though. Get the $1.50 leads. They're 15 days to I think 180 days old. And then you just pick your county and they'll show you how many of them are available. I think that's a great place to start. If you have the dollars to invest into real-time exclusive leads, click Jarvis Leads tab. Click the Jarvis Leads tab, and you can select what type of real-time leads you want. Based on the county, you'll get leads in real time, minimum 20, but those leads are going to range anywhere from $28 to $35 a lead. So that's a little bit of a bigger penny. If you want to know what I suggest, what's the best, most ideal thing to do, have a committed weekly number that you're willing to spend on leads. Don't sway from that number. Even if you don't make sales the first week or the second, don't sway from that number. Okay. And if you have a flexible budget, I would love to see someone purchase 40 leads a week, real-time exclusive, and 100 aged leads a week. You use Jarvis for the aged leads because you could pop all 100 of them into Jarvis. Jarvis will do a 12-week campaign of text messages, voicemails, emails on your behalf for you to every lead for 12 weeks. And if anybody responds to the text messages, anybody responds to the emails, Jarvis then notifies you. He says, hey, Jennifer, John Smith over there replied to one of our messages. Reply, do something. If you don't reply, Jarvis will reply for you. It's a very strong artificial intelligence. It's pretty cool. It'll go as far as trying to schedule a 15-minute phone call appointment between you and the lead if you don't jump in and do it. But you want to jump in and do it. You really do. That would be the ideal if I was to advise you, what would be the most ideal thing to do? 40 real-time leads a week, Okay, 100 age leads a week. You use drivers for the age lead, so it's working in behind the scenes for you. And those 40 real-time leads, as they come in, you call them. As they come in, you call them. As they come in, you call them. I'm going to let you guys go. I apologize for going over. We went an hour and a half. Our trainings are probably going to run about an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit less. But enjoy your day. I'm going to stay on for another minute or so, but you guys are free to hop off if anybody has any questions. I would love one thing. I just want your top 2 takeaways on our Voxer. Give me the top 2 takeaways on the Voxer. I don't think enough of you guys give me your takeaways, but that's important to me to know what you're learning. And if you want to, and if you even want to type in what you want to learn next, I would love to know what you guys want to learn next. And if I see a common denominator, I'll hit that up, no problem. And if I'm not the specialist, I'll bring the specialist that's better at that particular training than me. Have a great day. Enjoy, be blessed, and bye-bye.